Morning 2024. Milwaukee suburbs. A quiet street erupts with flashing lights. Officers swarm a modest two-story house. Guns drawn, radios crackling. A man in his 50s stands on the front lawn, hands cuffed behind his back. His face, blank, stunned, like he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. But here's the question that shook an entire city. What took 24 years to uncover? Rewind to October 12, 2000, Avondale, Chicago. Melissa Turner, 25 years old, accountant full of life, walks into her apartment at 11 p.m. after a long Thursday shift. Neighbors see her silhouette disappear through the doorway. Minutes later, a loud noise, then silence. When police arrive, they find a pried-open back door, lights still on, TV still playing. Melissa? Gone. What happened in those hours would haunt a neighborhood, devastate a family, and become one of Chicago's most frustrating cold cases. Until now. This isn't just another unsolved mystery. It's a story of secrets buried deep, betrayal hiding in plain sight, and justice that refused to die. Before we dive in, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. And if you love crime that goes deep, hit that subscribe button, you won't regret it. Not just the victim in a file, not just a name in a cold case. The person, 25 years old. Dark hair that she always wore in a practical ponytail during the week. Sharp mind for numbers. Worked as an accountant at Brown Associates, a mid-sized firm in the Loop. She wasn't flashy, didn't chase the spotlight. But anyone who knew her would tell you, Melissa had plans. She wanted to make senior accountant by 27. Maybe start her own consulting firm by 30. She was the kind of person who color-coded her planner and still found time to help her younger brother with his college applications. Her parents, Robert and Linda Turner, had moved to the suburbs years earlier, but Melissa chose to stay in the city. Independence mattered to her. Avondale felt like home, a working-class neighborhood on Chicago's northwest side where people still said good morning and kept an eye out for each other. October 2000. Autumn had settled in hard. Maple trees lining the streets burned with reds and golds. The air had that crisp bite that made you reach for a sweater in the morning. It was the kind of season that felt alive. Thursday, October 12th started like any other day for Melissa. She left her apartment around 7:30 a.m., green cloth bag slung over her shoulder, the same one she carried everywhere. Inside, her wallet, a couple of unpaid bills she needed to mail, apartment keys, a granola bar, and a paperback she'd been reading on the train. Co-workers remember her that day. Normal, maybe a little tired. It was tax season prep, and things were ramping up. But she was in good spirits. Cracked jokes during lunch, talked about maybe catching a movie that weekend with her boyfriend Tom Bradshaw. They'd been dating for about 8 months. Solid relationship. No red flags. He worked in IT support downtown. They'd met through mutual friends at a backyard barbecue that summer. Around 5:30 p.m., Melissa clocked out, took the Blue Line home like she always did, got off at Belmont-Kimball, walked the 6 blocks to her apartment on the corner of Berry and Sawyer. Neighbors would later recall seeing her. Mrs. Kowalczyk from across the street waved. Melissa waved back. A couple of kids were riding bikes up and down the sidewalk. Nothing out of the ordinary. She stopped at the corner store, picked up milk and a frozen dinner. The clerk, an older guy named Ray, remembered her. She seemed fine, smiled, said thank you. That was it. Melissa reached her apartment building just before 6:30 p.m. It was a modest 3-flat with beige siding and a small front porch. She rented the first-floor unit in the back. Quiet, affordable, close to the train. Now here's where things get important. Between 6:30 and 11 p.m., nobody knows exactly what Melissa did. Probably ate dinner, maybe watched TV, called her mom. Linda Turner confirmed they spoke around 7:15. Normal conversation. Nothing alarming. Melissa mentioned being tired and wanting to turn in early. But she didn't. At 11:03 p.m., a neighbor named Vincent Ramos was walking his dog past Melissa's building. He saw her, clear as day. standing outside her apartment door, fumbling with her keys, that green bag still over her shoulder. She looked like she'd just gotten back from somewhere. Vincent later told detectives, "I figured maybe she ran out to grab something or went for a walk. I didn't think much of it." He called out, "Evening." Melissa looked up, gave a quick smile and a nod, then slipped inside. Vincent continued down the block with his dog. That was the last confirmed sighting of Melissa Turner alive. 11:37 p.m. A 911 call comes in. Caller, an elderly woman 2 doors down, shaken voice, said she heard a loud bang, like something heavy hitting the floor or a door slamming, then raised voices, couldn't make out words, then nothing. Dispatch sent a patrol car, estimated arrival, 10 minutes. When officers Delgado and Pritchard pulled up at 11:51 p.m., the street was dead quiet. They knocked on Melissa's door. No answer. Knocked again. Tried the handle. Locked. They circled around back. That's when they saw it. The back door, slightly ajar. Frame splintered near the lock. Pried open. "Police? Anyone inside?" Silence. They entered, hands on their holsters. Inside, the apartment was lit up like someone had just stepped out for a second. Living room lights on. TV glowing. Some late-night talk show playing to an empty couch. A half-finished glass of water on the coffee table. But the kitchen told a different story. A chair, overturned. The green cloth bag on the floor near the hallway. Contents spilled. Keys glinting under the fluorescent light. A couple of bills scattered. Wallet still inside. Cash untouched. No phone. No Melissa. Bedroom door open. Bed made. Closet undisturbed. Bathroom empty. No signs of blood. No weapon. No body. Just an eerie, suspended moment. Like someone hit pause on Melissa's life and she vanished mid-scene. Officers Delgado and Pritchard called it in immediately. By midnight, Melissa Turner was officially a missing person, and the clock started ticking on a case that would consume investigators, devastate a family, and haunt a city for more than 2 decades. Within an hour, the apartment was swarming with personnel. Crime scene techs, forensic photographers, detectives from the Chicago PD's Area 5 headquarters. Yellow tape cordoned off the building. Neighbors gathered on the sidewalk, whispering, speculating. Enter Detective Sarah Brennan. 15 years on the force. Sharp instincts, a reputation for being relentless when a case grabbed her. She'd worked everything from gang violence to domestic homicides, but missing persons cases hit different. The uncertainty, the families stuck in limbo, the way hope twisted into desperation with every passing hour. She stepped into Melissa's apartment at 1:14 a.m., notepad in hand, eyes scanning every detail. "Talk to me," she said to the lead tech, a guy named Martinez. No signs of blood, Martinez reported. No obvious weapon. Back door was forced. Looks like a pry bar or crowbar. Locks busted clean through. Front door was locked from the inside, deadbolt engaged. Brennan walked through the space slowly. Living room, neat, couch cushions in place, TV still on. She had someone turn it off. The half-finished glass of water on the coffee table. A magazine folded open to an article about retirement planning. Melissa's work blazer draped over the armrest. Kitchen. The overturned chair caught her eye immediately. It was lying on its side near the table, like someone had stumbled or been shoved. The green cloth bag on the floor, contents scattered, keys, wallet, 2 unopened envelopes with bills, a chapstick, the paperback book. Brennan crouched down, picked up the wallet, opened it. $43 in cash, driver's license, debit card, Blockbuster membership card. "So we rule out robbery," she muttered. No phone anywhere. That bothered her. In 2000, cell phones weren't as universal, but Melissa had one. Her parents confirmed it. A Nokia, small, silver, probably in her bag or on her person. Bedroom, bed, neatly made. Alarm clock on the nightstand reading 1:20 a.m. Closet organized. Dresser drawers closed. Nothing out of place. Bathroom. Toothbrush still wet in the holder. Towel hung on the rack. Makeup bag on the counter. Brennan stood in the hallway, arms crossed, running scenarios. Someone forced the back door, came in while Melissa was here. There was a struggle, hence the chair. She was taken, or she fled. But fled where? And why leave her wallet and keys? Unless she didn't have a choice. Get prints on everything, Brennan instructed. Door frames, chair, bag, every surface. I want to know who else was in this apartment tonight. By 3 a.m., the interviews began. Vincent Ramos, the neighbor who'd seen Melissa at 11 p.m., was first. He sat in his living room, still in his jacket, dog curled at his feet. "You're sure it was her?" Brennan asked. "Positive. I've seen her around for over a year. It was Melissa. She was unlocking her door, had that green bag, smiled at me, went inside." "Did you see anyone else? Any cars you didn't recognize? Anyone lingering?" Vincent shook his head. "Just her. Street was quiet." "And the noise you heard later?" "I didn't hear anything. I was inside by then watching TV." The elderly woman who called 911, Margaret Callahan, was next. Nervous, hands shaking as she held a cup of tea. "It was loud," she said, "like a crash, or maybe a door slamming hard. Then I heard voices. Raised, you know? Angry, maybe. I couldn't tell if it was a man or woman. It didn't last long, 10, 15 seconds, then quiet." "Did you look outside?" "I peeked through the curtain. Didn't see anything. I thought maybe it was just a fight between a couple. Happens sometimes, but it felt off. So I called." Brennan made a note. Raised voices. Struggle. Then silence. Other neighbors reported hearing nothing. A couple mentioned seeing Melissa earlier in the evening, walking home, stopping at the store. But nothing unusual after 11 p.m. By dawn, Brennan's focus shifted to the people closest to Melissa. Tom Bradshaw, the boyfriend, was brought in for questioning at 6 a.m. He'd been called and told Melissa was missing. He looked gutted, eyes red, hands fidgeting. "Where were you last night between 10 p.m. and midnight?" Brennan asked. "Home, my apartment in Wicker Park. I was playing video games online with a buddy. We were on a call the whole time, 10:30 till like 1 in the morning. We'll need to verify that." "Of course. Whatever you need." Tom's alibi checked out. Phone records confirmed the call. His friend corroborated. He was nowhere near Avondale. "When's the last time you saw Melissa?" "Tuesday night. We got dinner. She was fine. Normal. We were supposed to hang out this weekend. Maybe see a movie." "Any problems between you two? Arguments? Anything unusual?" Tom shook his head, voice cracking. "No. Everything was good. She's amazing. I don't understand what's happening." Brennan believed him. Gut instinct. Tom wasn't involved. Melissa's family arrived by mid-morning. Robert and Linda Turner. Her younger brother Jason, 19, home from college. Linda was barely holding it together. Robert kept his arm around her, face pale, jaw tight. "Who would do this?" Linda whispered. "Melissa doesn't have enemies. She's careful. She's smart. Her voice broke. Brennan gave them space, then asked the necessary questions. Had Melissa mentioned anyone bothering her? Any strange encounters? Exes? Co-workers? Nothing. Melissa's life was stable. No threats, no drama. Jason spoke up, voice shaky. "She called me Wednesday night. We talked about my classes. She was helping me with a paper. She sounded totally normal. Happy even." Brennan spent the next 48 hours chasing every thread. Co-workers at Brown Associates were interviewed. Everyone liked Melissa, professional, friendly, no workplace conflicts, no one acting strangely around her. Forensics came back with prints from the apartment. Most belonged to Melissa. A few partials from Tom, consistent with him being there regularly. Some smudged prints on the back door frame, too degraded to match. No usable DNA. No hair fibers that didn't belong to Melissa. The back door pry marks suggested someone strong, methodical, not random, not sloppy. Detectives canvassed the neighborhood, knocked on every door within a 3-block radius, showed Melissa's photo, asked about suspicious vehicles, strangers, anything odd in recent weeks. A few tips came in. Someone thought they saw a dark sedan parked on the block that night. Another person mentioned a man walking past the building around 10:30, but nothing concrete. Nothing that led anywhere. Days turned into a week, then 2. Melissa's face appeared on local news. Flyers went up across Avondale. Her family held a press conference begging for information. The theory board in the detective bureau grew chaotic. Burglary interrupted? Random abduction? Someone she knew? Brennan worked 16-hour days, followed up on every tip, no matter how small. But the leads dried up. No body, no witnesses, no clear suspect. By November, the case was stalling. By December, it was cold. What time is it where you are right now? Seriously, drop it in the comments. Let's see how global this community is. January 2001. The flyers stapled to telephone poles started to fade. Rain and snow peeled the ink away until Melissa's face was barely recognizable. The news cycle moved on. Other crimes, other headlines. The city's attention drifted. But the Turners didn't move on. They couldn't. Linda Turner called Detective Brennan every week, sometimes twice a week. Anything new? The hope in her voice thinning with each call. We're still working it, Brennan would say. And she meant it. But the truth was harder to swallow. The leads had evaporated. Every tip that came in through the hotline had been chased down. The dark sedan belonged to a resident 2 streets over, accounted for. The man walking past at 10:30? A jogger who'd been identified and cleared. Every potential witness, every hunch, every theory. Dead ends. Forensics had nothing. The degraded prints on the back door weren't enough for a match. No DNA. No murder weapon, because there was no confirmed murder. No body. No crime scene beyond that small apartment with its overturned chair and missing woman. Melissa Turner had simply vanished. Robert Turner took a leave of absence from his job. Spent his days driving through Chicago, searching alleys, parks, abandoned buildings, anywhere someone might hide a body. He'd come home exhausted, hollow-eyed, and do it again the next day. Jason dropped out of college that spring. Couldn't focus, couldn't sit in a classroom pretending life was normal when his sister was gone. The family organized search parties. Dozens of volunteers combing forest preserves, riverbanks, construction sites. They handed out flyers at train stations and grocery stores. They kept Melissa's name alive the only way they knew how. Every October 12th, they held a vigil. Avondale Park, candles, photos of Melissa. Her friends would show up. Neighbors. Tom Bradshaw carrying his own guilt for being unable to protect her. Year after year, the crowd got smaller. For Detective Brennan, the case became personal in a way she didn't expect. She kept Melissa's file on her desk, reopened it during slow weeks, reread witness statements, stared at crime scene photos looking for something, anything, she'd missed. Her captain eventually told her to move on. Other cases needed her attention. Homicides with suspects, assaults with evidence. Melissa's case was cold, not closed. Cold. There was a difference. Sometimes we don't get the answers, Sarah, Captain Lewinsky said. You've done everything you can. But it didn't feel like enough. Brennan worked Melissa's case on her own time. Weekends, late nights. She reached out to the FBI, hoping their resources might crack it open. They reviewed the file, agreed it was frustrating, but without new evidence, their hands were tied. She submitted the degraded DNA samples for reprocessing twice over the years as technology improved. Both times, nothing usable came back. The case haunted her. She'd lie awake at night replaying the timeline. Melissa arriving home at 6:30, the mystery hours until 11. The sighting by Vincent Ramos. The forced door. The struggle. Who came through that door? And why? By 2005, Brennan had moved on to other assignments. Promoted to sergeant. More responsibilities. Melissa's file went into a storage box in the cold case archives. Box 2447, third shelf. Between a 1998 robbery homicide, and a 2002 hit and run. The neighborhood changed too. Avondale remained tight-knit, but something had shifted. People locked their doors more carefully, watched strangers with suspicion. Parents walked their daughters home at night. Fear had seeped into the cracks of everyday life. There were whispers, theories that spread like folklore. Some believed Melissa had run away, started over somewhere new. It was easier to imagine than the alternative. Others thought it was a drifter, someone passing through who'd never be caught. A few pointed fingers at people in the neighborhood, suspicion without proof, friendships fractured, trust eroded. Tom Bradshaw moved to Denver in 2003, couldn't stay in Chicago. Too many memories, too much pain. Melissa's parents aged rapidly. Linda's hair went gray. Robert developed a tremor in his hands. They stayed in the suburbs, but kept Melissa's childhood bedroom exactly as she'd left it, waiting. Jason eventually went back to school, finished his degree, became a social worker. But he admitted years later that he chose that path because of Melissa, to help people, to do something that mattered, because he couldn't help his sister. Detective Brennan retired in 2015, 30 years on the force, hundreds of cases solved, commendations, respect from her peers. But at her retirement party, when people asked about her career, about the cases that stuck with her, she thought of Melissa Turner. "There's always one," she told a younger detective that night. "One case you can't shake, one person you feel like you failed." "You didn't fail her," the detective said. Brennan shrugged. "Then why does it feel like I did?" By 2020, Melissa's case was 20 years old. The Turners held their vigil. Smaller than ever, just family now, a handful of people who still remembered, still cared. Linda stood in front of Melissa's photo, her daughter frozen at 25, forever young, and said quietly, "We won't forget you, baby. We won't stop." But deep down, everyone knew the reality. Cold cases rarely got solved. Time buried evidence, witnesses forgot, suspects died or disappeared. The world moved on. Melissa Turner's file sat in that box, gathering dust. One of thousands. A name, a story, a life interrupted. Justice felt impossible, until it wasn't. If you're loving this story and want to see how justice finally caught up, hit that like button and subscribe. We go deep into cases like this every single week, cases that refuse to be forgotten. Spring 2023. Chicago PD's cold case unit got a budget increase, not massive, but enough. Enough to fund new technology, enough to revisit old evidence with tools that didn't exist 20 years ago, enough to give forgotten cases a second chance. Detective Marcus Webb was 32, young for a detective assigned to cold cases, but he'd earned his spot. Sharp, obsessive about details. The kind of investigator who couldn't let go of a puzzle until every piece fit. He'd grown up on the South Side, joined the force at 23, worked patrol, then narcotics, then homicide. When the cold case unit opened up a position, he jumped at it. "Why cold cases?" his partner asked him once. "Most of them stay cold." "Most," Webb said, "but not all." He spent his first month reviewing files, box after box, names, dates, crimes that time had tried to erase. Then he found Melissa Turner, October 12, 2000, missing person, suspected abduction, no body recovered, no suspect ever charged. He pulled the file, read every page, witness statements, crime scene photos, Detective Brennan's notes, meticulous, frustrated, thorough. Something about it grabbed him. Maybe it was Melissa's age. She'd been 25 when she disappeared. He was 32 now. She'd be 48 if she were still alive. But Webb knew better. The forced door, the overturned chair, the silence that followed. Melissa Turner was dead. He was sure of it. The question was, who killed her? And could he prove it after 23 years? Webb started at the beginning. He requested all physical evidence from storage. Took weeks to locate it. Evidence locker number 4521 in a warehouse on the west side. Boxes sealed and labeled. chain of custody intact. Inside, the green cloth bag, Melissa's keys, her wallet, photographs, swabs taken from the apartment, trace samples from under her fingernails, collected during the initial investigation but never fully analyzed because the DNA was degraded. In 2000, forensic DNA technology was limited. Partial profiles were often useless. Databases were smaller. Matches were harder to confirm. But it was 2023 now. Webb contacted the forensic lab. I need you to reprocess everything. Use whatever methods we've got now that didn't exist back then. The tech, a woman named Dr. Patel, looked skeptical. Detective, if the DNA was degraded in 2000, try anyway, Webb said. Please. Dr. Patel took the samples. 2 weeks later, Webb got the call. We recovered a partial profile, Dr. Patel said. It's not perfect, it's fragmented, but it's usable. Webb felt his pulse quicken. Usable how? We can run it through CODIS and see if we get a hit. But honestly, don't get your hopes up. Partial profiles rarely match unless the person's already in the system. Webb submitted it anyway. No match. He wasn't surprised. But he wasn't discouraged either. Because there was another option now, one that hadn't existed in 2000, forensic genealogy. It had exploded in the last few years. Cases like the Golden State Killer had proven its power. Investigators could take DNA from a crime scene, upload it to public genealogy databases, and trace family trees, find distant relatives, build a web of connections, narrow down suspects. It was painstaking. It was slow, but it worked. Webb reached out to a forensic genealogist named Ann Brenner, no relation to Detective Brennan, who'd helped law enforcement agencies across the country. Send me what you've got, she said. Webb sent the partial DNA profile. Ann Brenner called in late September 2023. I think I've got him, she said. Webb sat up. Who? Based on the genealogical tree I've built, the DNA profile most likely belongs to someone from the Kowalski family, specifically a male descendant in the right age range who lived in Chicago in 2000. Webb's heart hammered. Give me a name. David Kowalski, born 1956, last known address, Avondale, Chicago, moved to Wisconsin in 2002. Webb closed his eyes. There it was. Are you certain? As certain as I can be without a direct DNA sample. The family connection is strong. He fits the profile, and detective, he had access to the victim's building. Webb thanked her and hung up. He pulled every record on David Kowalski, employment history, tax records, DMV, social media, sparse, barely active. He looked at photos of Kowalski from 2000, stocky, quiet-looking, forgettable, the kind of man who blended in, who neighbors waved to without thinking twice. He'd been right there, 3 blocks away, working in Melissa's building. And then, 2 years after she disappeared, he left Chicago, moved across state lines, started fresh. Webb leaned back in his chair, staring at the file. 23 years. Melissa Turner had been waiting for justice for 23 years. He picked up the phone. Time to get a warrant. Hey, real quick. What's the weather like where you are today? Sunny, raining, snowing? Drop it in the comments. I'm curious where you all are watching from. David Kowalski. Webb stared at the file, at the face that had been hiding in plain sight for over 2 decades. Born March 1956 in Chicago, grew up in Bridgeport. Parents were Polish immigrants. Father worked in a factory, mother cleaned houses. David was the middle child, 2 brothers, quiet kid. Graduated high school in 1974, no college, bounced between jobs, construction, warehouse work, eventually settled into handyman gigs around the city. By the late 90s, he was doing maintenance and repair work across the Northwest Side. Furnaces, plumbing, electrical, cash jobs mostly. Under the table, he was reliable enough, showed up when called, did the work, didn't talk much. People described him the same way, kept to himself. Polite but distant. Did his job and left. In 2000, David was 44, living alone in a small rental on Roscoe Street in Avondale, 3 blocks from Melissa Turner's apartment. He'd been hired by the property management company that owned Melissa's building in September 2000 to fix the building's aging furnace before winter hit. Spent several days in the basement, had access to the building, saw the tenants coming and going, saw Melissa. Webb found the maintenance logs. David had signed in and out, September 18th through September 22nd. 5 days. He would have seen her routine. When she left for work, when she came home, the green cloth bag she always carried. And here's what made Webb's stomach turn. Melissa had mentioned the maintenance guy to Tom, said he creeped her out. She'd felt it, that instinct women learn to trust. Something off about the way he looked at her, the way he lingered. But she didn't report it, didn't make a scene. Because what could she say? He hadn't done anything, just gave her a bad feeling. Webb dug deeper into Kowalski's history. No arrests, no restraining orders. But there were small things. Red flags buried in paperwork. In 1989, a woman in Wicker Park filed a complaint about a handyman who'd been doing work in her apartment. Said he kept coming back, making excuses to return. Said he made her uncomfortable. The name on the complaint? David Kowalski. Nothing came of it. He apologized, stopped showing up. The woman dropped it. In 1995, another complaint, this time from a property manager in Logan Square, said Kowalski had been acting strangely around female tenants, staring too long, asking personal questions. The manager let him go. No formal charges. Webb made calls, tracked down people who'd known Kowalski back then. A former co-worker remembered him. Dave was weird around women, the guy said. Not aggressive, just off. He'd talk about them like he knew them personally, but he didn't, like he'd built up relationships in his head that didn't exist. Another acquaintance. He didn't have many friends. Kept to himself. I always got the sense he was angry about something, like the world owed him and he wasn't getting his due. Webb found Kowalski's ex-wife. They'd been married briefly in the early 80s, divorced in 1984. She was reluctant to talk at first, but when Webb mentioned Melissa Turner, something shifted in her voice. Always wondered if David would hurt someone, she said quietly. He never hit me, but he scared me. He had this way of watching me, obsessing. If I talked to another man, even just being polite, he'd accuse me of cheating. He'd follow me, show up places I didn't tell him I'd be. Did he ever threaten you? Not directly, but I felt threatened. I left him and didn't look back, cut all contact. I heard he moved around a lot after that. Webb thanked her and hung up. The picture was coming together. David Kowalski wasn't a violent criminal with a record. He was something more insidious, a man who fixated on women, who felt entitled to their attention, who couldn't handle rejection or indifference. And in October 2000, he'd worked in Melissa Turner's building, seen her, maybe tried to talk to her, maybe she brushed him off. Maybe she gave him that polite smile women use to diffuse situations without engaging. And maybe that wasn't enough for him. Webb built a timeline. September 18th to 22, 2000, Kowalski works in Melissa's building. October 12th, 2000, Melissa disappears. October 14th, 2000, Kowalski is briefly interviewed as part of the neighborhood canvass. Gives a vague alibi. Says he was home alone watching TV. Detectives note it but don't press. He's cooperative. Doesn't seem nervous. Nothing jumps out. November 2000. Kowalski continues doing handyman work around Avondale. March 2002. Kowalski moves to Wisconsin. No forwarding address given to neighbors. Just gone. Why Wisconsin? Why then? Webb called the Milwaukee Police Department. Requested any records on David Kowalski. Nothing. Clean. No arrests, no complaints. He'd lived quietly in a small suburb called West Allis for over 20 years, worked odd jobs, married a woman named Patricia in 2005. She had no idea about his past in Chicago. Webb requested surveillance. The Milwaukee PD agreed to help, sent plainclothes officers to observe Kowalski's residence, a modest ranch-style house on a tree-lined street, single-car garage, small yard. They watched him for 2 weeks. Kowalski's routine was mundane. Woke up early, drank coffee on the porch, ran errands, worked part-time at a hardware store, came home, watched TV, went to bed. He looked like every other retiree in America. But Webb knew better. He contacted the district attorney's office in Chicago, presented everything he had. The DNA evidence, partial, but linked through forensic genealogy to Kowalski's family. The timeline: Kowalski had access to Melissa's building weeks before her disappearance. The behavioral profile: pattern of obsessive behavior toward women. The unexplained move to Wisconsin 2 years after the crime. The vague alibi that was never corroborated. The prosecutor, a woman named Rebecca Ortiz, reviewed it carefully. "It's circumstantial," she said, "but it's strong. The DNA is the key. If we can get a direct sample from Kowalski and it matches, we've got him." "So we need a warrant," Webb said. "We need probable cause for an arrest warrant. The genealogical DNA gives us that. A judge will sign off." Webb felt the weight of it. 23 years. Melissa's family waiting. Detective Brennan's haunted retirement. All those cold, silent years. "Let's bring him in," Webb said. Ortiz nodded. "I'll draft the warrant." 2 days later, the warrant was signed. David Kowalski was officially a suspect in the abduction and presumed murder of Melissa Turner. Webb called Melissa's parents. Robert Turner answered. His voice was older now. Fragile. "Mr. Turner, this is Detective Marcus Webb with Chicago PD. I'm calling about your daughter's case." Silence. Then, "You found something?" "We have a suspect. We're moving to arrest him. I can't give you details yet, but I wanted you to hear it from me first." Robert's breath hitched. "After all this time?" "After all this time," Webb confirmed. "Does he—" Robert's voice cracked. "Does he know where Melissa is?" Webb's chest tightened. "We're going to find out." He heard Linda in the background, asking what was happening. Heard Robert telling her. Heard her sob. "Thank you," Robert whispered. "Thank you for not forgetting her." Webb ended the call and sat in the quiet of his office. He looked at Melissa's photo pinned to his caseboard. 25 years old, smiling, frozen in time. "We're coming for him," Webb said quietly. "Spring 2024. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Time to make the arrest. April 9th, 2024, 5:47 a.m. West Allis, Wisconsin." A quiet residential street still dark under pre-dawn sky. 3 unmarked vehicles rolled to a stop 2 blocks from David Kowalski's house. Engines cut. Doors opened silently. 12 officers emerged. Chicago PD detectives. Milwaukee PD Tactical Unit. U.S. Marshals. Detective Marcus Webb wore a tactical vest over his shirt. Gun holstered. Radio clipped to his belt. His heart pounded, but his hands were steady. This was it. 23 years, 7 months, and 28 days since Melissa Turner disappeared. Lieutenant Harding from Milwaukee PD gave the final briefing in low tones. "We've got eyes on the house. Lights are off. 2 occupants, Kowalski and his wife. No indication he's armed, but we proceed cautiously. Warrants for arrest and search. Chicago takes lead on the suspect. Milwaukee handles the scene. Questions?" "None." "Let's move." They approached on foot, silent, practiced. 2 teams, one to the front door, one around back in case Kowalski ran. Webb was front and center. The house looked painfully normal. Tan siding, small porch, American flag hanging limp in the still morning air. A bird feeder in the yard. Flower boxes under the windows. The kind of place you'd never look twice at. Webb climbed the porch steps, stood to the side of the front door, raised his fist, knocked, hard, 3 times. "David Kowalski, Chicago Police, open the door." Silence. He knocked again. Louder. "Police, we have a warrant, open the door now." Movement inside. A light flickered on. Footsteps. The door cracked open. A woman's face appeared. Patricia Kowalski, David's wife. Mid-60s. Confused. Terrified. "What's going on?" she stammered. "Ma'am, we need to speak with David Kowalski. Step aside, please." He's asleep. What is this about?" "Step aside. Now." She moved back, clutching her robe. Officers pushed past her, sweeping through the house. "Clear." "Bedroom, suspect located." Webb moved down the hallway, into the master bedroom. David Kowalski sat on the edge of the bed, barefoot, wearing a white t-shirt and sweatpants. Gray hair thinning on top, glasses on the nightstand. He looked small, ordinary. His eyes met Webb's, and in that instant, Webb saw it. Recognition, not surprise, not confusion. David Kowalski had been waiting for this. "David Kowalski," Webb said, voice firm. "You're under arrest for the abduction and murder of Melissa Turner." Kowalski didn't move. "Stand up. Hands behind your back." He stood slowly, complied. An officer cuffed him. "I didn't kill anyone," Kowalski said quietly. Flat, almost rehearsed. "You have the right to remain silent," Webb continued. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney." "I know my rights." Patricia was in the doorway, sobbing. "David, what is this? What did you do?" Kowalski didn't look at her. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to wait in the living room," an officer said, gently guiding her away. They walked Kowalski out of the house. The street was waking up now. Lights turning on in neighboring homes. Curtains pulled back. Faces in windows. A patrol car sat at the curb, lights flashing red and blue against the dawn. Webb opened the back door, placed his hand on Kowalski's head, guiding him inside. Kowalski sat, stared straight ahead, expression blank. Webb closed the door, exhaled. It was done. Back in Chicago, the news broke fast. By 8 a.m., the press had it. Chicago Tribune, Sun-Times, local news stations, national outlets picked it up within hours. Arrest made in 2000, cold case disappearance of Melissa Turner. Chicago accountant's 24-year-old mystery solved through DNA. Wisconsin man charged in Avondale woman's murder. The city erupted. Social media exploded. Reddit threads, Facebook groups dedicated to Chicago cold cases, true crime forums dissecting every detail. I remember when this happened. I lived 2 blocks away. 24 years? Her family never gave up. DNA genealogy is changing everything. In Avondale, the reaction was visceral. People who'd lived there in 2000 gathered on street corners, outside coffee shops, talking in hushed, urgent tones. Vincent Ramos, the neighbor who'd seen Melissa that final night, sat in his nursing home, watching the news, tears streaming down his face. "I knew him," Vincent said to a nurse. "David. He used to do work around the neighborhood. I probably said hello to him 100 times. He was right there. Right there." The property management company that had hired Kowalski in 2000 released a statement expressing shock and cooperation with authorities. Detective Sarah Brennan, retired 5 years now, got the call from Webb himself. "We got him," Webb said. Brennan sat down heavily in her kitchen, hand over her mouth, eyes wet. "David Kowalski," Webb continued. "Handyman. Worked in her building. DNA match through forensic genealogy. I interviewed him," Brennan said, voice shaking. "October 2000. I spoke to him. He was cooperative, calm. I didn't—" She stopped. "I didn't see it." "He was good at hiding," Webb said. "But not good enough." Brennan nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "Thank you, Marcus. Melissa deserved this." The Turner family held a press conference that afternoon. Robert and Linda Turner stood at a podium outside the Area 5 police headquarters, their son Jason beside them. Linda gripped the podium's edge like it was the only thing holding her up. Robert spoke first, voice steady but strained. "For 24 years, we've lived in a nightmare, not knowing, not understanding. wondering if we'd ever get answers. He paused, swallowed hard. Today, we got those answers. It doesn't bring Melissa back, it doesn't erase the pain. But it's something. It's justice. Linda leaned into the microphone. David Kowalski stole our daughter from us. He stole her future, her dreams, everything she could have been. And then he lived his life like nothing happened, got married, had a home, while we buried an empty casket and waited. Her voice broke. But we never stopped fighting for her, and neither did the investigators who refused to let her case die. Jason stepped forward. Melissa was my big sister. She helped me with homework, gave me advice, made me laugh. Will you attend the trial? Absolutely, Robert said. What do you want to say to David Kowalski? Linda's jaw tightened. Nothing. He doesn't deserve my words. Back in Milwaukee, forensic teams tore through Kowalski's house. They seized computers, hard drives, boxes of old documents, photographs, tools from the garage. In the basement, they found a storage bin tucked behind old furniture. Inside, newspaper clippings, articles about Melissa's disappearance, flyers from the search efforts, a photo of Melissa, cut from a community newsletter. He'd kept them, trophies, reminders. The DNA sample taken from Kowalski came back 3 days later. Direct match to the profile found under Melissa Turner's fingernails. She'd fought, scratched him, left evidence on her own body. And 24 years later, that evidence spoke. David Kowalski was formally charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping. He sat in a Milwaukee jail cell awaiting extradition to Illinois. Silent. Refused to talk without his attorney present. But it didn't matter. The evidence was overwhelming. Justice, slow and agonizing as it was, had finally arrived. Don't forget to share this video. Stories like Melissa's deserve to be told and remembered. Hit that share button. Let's make sure her name is never forgotten. June 2024, Cook County Criminal Courthouse, Courtroom 506. The trial of David Kowalski began on a humid Tuesday morning. Outside, protesters held signs. Melissa's photo blown up on poster board. Justice for Melissa. 24 years too long. Inside, every seat was filled. Reporters, true crime enthusiasts, Avondale residents who remembered, and front row, center, Robert, Linda, and Jason Turner. Linda clutched a photo of Melissa in her lap, the same one from the missing person flyers. Her daughter's face worn smooth from years of handling. David Kowalski sat at the defense table in a gray suit, hands folded. His attorney, Martin Sheff, a seasoned public defender, sat beside him, flipping through notes. Kowalski's wife, Patricia, had filed for divorce 3 weeks after his arrest. She wasn't in the courtroom. Judge Carolyn Vasquez entered. Everyone stood. The people of the state of Illinois versus David Kowalski. Are both sides ready? Ready, Your Honor, said Assistant State's Attorney Rebecca Ortiz. Ready, Sheff replied. The trial was expected to last 3 weeks. Ortiz's opening statement was surgical. She stood before the jury, 7 women, 5 men, and laid out the case step by step. On October 12, 2000, Melissa Turner was 25 years old. She had a job she loved, a family who adored her, a future ahead of her. That night, someone broke into her apartment, attacked her, and took her from this world. She paused. Let it sink in. For 24 years, the question was, who? Today, the answer is sitting right there. David Kowalski. She gestured toward him. He didn't react. Mr. Kowalski had access to Melissa's building. He worked there weeks before her disappearance. He saw her. He fixated on her. And when she rejected his attention, when she made him feel invisible, he forced his way into her home and took her life. Ortiz walked to the evidence table, held up a sealed bag containing fingernail clippings. Melissa fought back. She scratched him. And she left us evidence, DNA, the defendant's DNA, under her fingernails. She turned back to the jury. David Kowalski thought he'd gotten away with it. He moved to another state, started over, lived his life while Melissa's family suffered. But DNA doesn't lie. Science doesn't forget. And today, 24 years later, justice will be served. Chef's opening was different, calmer, more skeptical. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is built on a foundation of assumptions. The prosecution wants you to believe that a partial DNA profile, collected in 2000, degraded, reprocessed in 2023, is ironclad proof of murder. But is it? He walked slowly in front of the jury box. David Kowalski worked in that building. He was a handyman. He touched doors. He moved furniture. Is it impossible that trace amounts of his DNA ended up transferred innocently, through surfaces, through tools? He shook his head. There is no body, no murder weapon, no eyewitness placing my client at the scene the night Melissa Turner disappeared. What the prosecution has is circumstantial evidence and a theory. Theories aren't proof. And in America, we don't convict people based on guesses. He looked directly at the jury. David Kowalski is innocent, and the state cannot, prove otherwise beyond a reasonable doubt. The prosecution called witnesses. Detective Marcus Webb took the stand, walked the jury through the investigation, the DNA match, the forensic genealogy, Kowalski's history of unsettling behavior toward women. Dr. Patel, the forensic scientist, explained how the DNA was recovered and matched, showed charts, percentages, probability ratios. The likelihood that this DNA belongs to someone other than David Kowalski is less than 1 in 50 billion, she testified. Chef cross-examined aggressively. But the sample was degraded, correct? Yes. And it was stored for over 20 years? Correct. Isn't it possible contamination occurred? Our protocols prevent that. But possible. Dr. Patel hesitated. In theory, anything is possible. But in practice, no. The match is solid. The defense called their own experts, questioned the chain of custody, suggested the DNA could have been transferred innocently. But the prosecution had more. They called Kowalski's ex-wife. She testified about his obsessive behavior, his anger, his need to control. They called former employers, tenants who remembered him lingering too long, asking strange questions. They called Tom Bradshaw via video link. He testified that Melissa had mentioned feeling uncomfortable around the maintenance worker. Piece by piece, Ortiz built a portrait of a man who didn't explode in violence, but simmered, fixated, waited for an opportunity. And on October 12, 2000, he took it. Closing arguments came 3 weeks later. Ortiz stood before the jury one last time. Melissa Turner fought for her life, and in doing so she gave us the evidence to find her killer. The science is clear. The timeline is clear. David Kowalski is guilty. Chef countered. Doubt exists. Reasonable doubt. And where doubt exists, you must acquit. The jury deliberated for 2 days. On the third day, they returned. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. The foreperson stood, unfolded the paper. In the matter of the People versus David Kowalski, on the count of first-degree murder, we find the defendant. Linda Turner gripped her husband's hand. Guilty. The courtroom erupted. Robert dropped his head into his hands. Linda sobbed. Jason closed his eyes, exhaling years of anguish. David Kowalski showed no emotion, just stared straight ahead. Judge Vasquez banged her gavel. Order. Sentencing was set for August 14th, 2024. David Kowalski was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was let out in chains, never once looked at the Turner family. Outside the courthouse, Linda spoke to reporters. Melissa can rest now. We can rest now. It's not the ending we wanted, but it's the ending we fought for. In Avondale, a mural went up on the side of a building near where Melissa's apartment once stood. Her face, her name, The dates. Gone but never forgotten. Detective Brennan visited it one afternoon, stood quietly, touched the wall. "We got him, kid," she whispered. And for the first time in 24 years, she felt like she could breathe. Melissa Turner's case is closed, but thousands more remain open. Across America, there are over 250,000 unsolved murder cases sitting in evidence rooms. Boxes stacked on shelves, files gathering dust, families still waiting for answers that may never come. Each one represents a life stolen, a future erased, parents who aged waiting, siblings who grew up with ghosts, communities forever changed by violence that went unpunished. For decades, many of those cases felt hopeless. DNA technology existed, but it had limits. Databases were small, matches were rare. If a suspect wasn't already in the system, the evidence sat unused. But something shifted in the last 10 years. Forensic genealogy changed the game. What seemed impossible became possible. Cases cold for 20, 30, even 40 years started breaking open. The Golden State Killer, the boy in the box, April Tinsley. Names that haunted investigators suddenly had answers. Melissa Turner joined that list in 2024. It took 24 years. It took advances in science that didn't exist when she disappeared. It took a detective who refused to let her story fade. It took a family who never stopped demanding justice. But it happened, and that matters, because every solved case sends a message. You can't outrun time. You can't bury the truth forever. Justice may be slow, but it's patient, and it's relentless. David Kowalski thought he was safe. He moved states, built a new life. Decades passed without consequence. But Melissa's DNA, microscopic traces under her fingernails, waited. Silent, preserved, ready to speak when the technology finally caught up. She left a piece of evidence behind that would become her voice. And that's how we should remember her. Not just as a victim, not just as a case number or a headline. Melissa Turner was a daughter who called her mom every week, a sister who helped with homework, a young woman who loved her job and had dreams. She was 25 years old with an entire life ahead of her. David Kowalski stole that, but he didn't erase her. Her family made sure of that. They held vigils. They kept her name alive. They refused to let the world forget. And because of them, because of detectives like Sarah Brennan and Marcus Webb, Melissa's story got an ending. Not the one anyone wanted. But an ending. Closure. Accountability. Justice. There are thousands of families still waiting for theirs, cases that haven't had their breakthrough yet, evidence that hasn't been retested, technology that keeps evolving, creating new possibilities every year. So the question is, who's next? Which cold case will be the next to crack open? Which family will finally get their call? Which name will go from unsolved to justice served? We'll keep telling these stories. Because they matter. Because the victims matter. Because as long as people remember, hope doesn't die. Melissa Turner is proof of that. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss a story. We cover cases like this every week, cases that deserve to be told, remembered, and solved. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about this case? And I'll see you in the next one. Justice delayed isn't justice denied. Sometimes it's just justice waiting for its moment.